Hello, my friends. Today, title of my horror story is The Silent Choir. In the quaint village of Kinsley, there was a church known for its eerie silence. St. Agatha's Chapel stood at the edge of town, surrounded by a sprawling cemetery. The townsfolk avoided it after sundown, for it was said that the dead still gathered there, singing hymns and voices no living ear could hear. The story went that centuries ago, a choir of 12 children and their conductor had perished in a fire during a midnight service. Their bodies were never recovered, but their voices were said to haunt the chapel. Anyone who entered the chapel at night was rumored to hear the silent choir, and those who stayed too long never came out. The dare, Cassie, an ambitious young journalist, heard about the chapel while visiting relatives in Kinsley. Fascinated by the tale, she decided to investigate. She believed it was just another local legend, and she was determined to debunk it. Seriously, Cassie, don't go, her cousin Mia warned. No one steps foot in that place after dark. People have disappeared. Exactly why I need to go, Cassie replied, adjusting her camera strap. If I find something, it'll be the story of a lifetime. Armed with a flashlight, a tape recorder, and her camera, Cassie made her way to the chapel at midnight. The chapel loomed before her, its stained glass windows dark and lifeless. The heavy wooden doors creaked as she pushed them open, and the smell of damp stone and old wood greeted her. Inside, the air was thick and cold. Rows of decaying pews stretched toward the altar, where a charred organ sat in silence. The moonlight streaming through a broken window cast long shadows that seemed to move on their own. "All right," Cassie whispered, pulling out her recorder. "Let's see if the silent choir is home." She began to explore, snapping photos of the crumbling interior. Nothing unusual happened at first, but as she approached the altar, a faint sound reached her ears. It was a melody, soft, sweet, and haunting. Cassie froze. The sound grew louder, though it seemed to come from nowhere. She switched on her recorder and whispered, "If there's anyone here, please make yourself known." The music stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, pressing against her eardrums like a physical weight. Then, she heard it, a single voice, high and clear, singing a hymn she didn't recognize. Cassie's hands trembled as she aimed her flashlight toward the organ. There was no one there. The voice was joined by another, then another, until the entire chapel was filled with a ghostly choir. The sound was beautiful yet wrong, like a song played on an instrument slightly out of tune. "Who are you?" Cassie asked, her voice quivering. The choir stopped. A cold wind swept through the chapel, extinguishing her flashlight. In the sudden darkness, she heard footsteps, small, deliberate, and drawing closer. Cassie fumbled for her camera, the flash providing brief, strobe-like glimpses of her surroundings. The pews were empty, but shadows moved between them. Then she saw them. 12 children stood in the aisle, their faces pale and hollow, their eyes dark pits that reflected no light. They stared at her, their mouths moving silently. Behind them stood a tall figure in tattered robes, its face obscured by shadow. The conductor. The figure raised a hand, and the children began to sing again, their mouths stretching impossibly wide. The sound grew louder, piercing, as if the hymn itself was clawing its way into Cassie's mind. She screamed, dropping her camera as she stumbled backward. The choir advanced, their song relentless. Desperate, Cassie turned and ran, the chapel's doors slamming shut behind her. The hymn followed her into the night, fading only when she reached the edge of the cemetery. The aftermath. Cassie never spoke of what happened in the chapel. Her camera was recovered days later, lying just inside the chapel doors. The photos were mostly unremarkable, showing the empty chapel in various states of decay, all except one. The final image showed the children standing in the aisle, their dark eyes fixed on the camera. At the center was the conductor, its face a void of blackness. Cassie left Kinsley soon after, but the hymn never left her. On quiet nights, she swore she could still hear it, a melody just at the edge of hearing, calling her back to St. Agatha's. And she wasn't the only one. Over the years, others claimed to hear the hymn as they passed the chapel, Some were brave or foolish enough to enter. None of them ever came back. This is the end of Horror Story. Hope you like this story. Please guys, like and subscribe for more horror content. Take care guys. Bye bye.